Hello everyone and welcome to this video where I'm going to be taking you through building my NRL 2020 fantasy team. Now I've been playing fantasy for I think this will be my 6th or 7th season in a row now, and if there's one thing I've learned in fantasy in that time is that you need to spend money up top and that you really never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen with injuries, if someone's really going to have a season and live up to their potential that you really hope they might, but you just got to take a punt on some people, and that's what I'm doing this year, going with a little bit of a gamble of a team. So today I'm going to be taking you through all 21 of my players and explaining why I'm going with them and what the upside of them is. So starting with the most important position in the game, I've got Apisai Coruscant coming into hooker. Now normally hooker is probably my most expensive position. I usually dump all of my money into this one spot. Hookers always get you so many points. But this year with Coruscant coming off a year where he was sharing duties with Manasi Fainu, he went down in price. With not playing 80 minutes, his average went down and then therefore did his price as well. But this year at Penrith, he's tipped to be playing the whole 80. And we know that Coruscant is a quality hooker. He'll be making his tackles, he'll be making his passes, he won't have errors. And with playing all 80 minutes, his points are going to soar up and therefore sell his price as well. So in my mind, it's best to just throw him in there, let his price go off and maybe upgrade him to a Cameron Smith or a Damien Cook later if they're going well. Or he might even be playing well enough just to keep him there all year as it is. And that frees up cash to go with the most expensive player in the game for prop, Payne Haas. You have to go with Haas this year, you simply do. If you're playing head to head and you're playing against someone who has Haas, and especially has Haas as captain, those are just points gone begging that they're almost certainly going to have over you. He's that expensive already that it's going to be really hard to trade up to him later. So at this point, you almost have to just jump on him now. I know he takes up 1/10 of your salary cap, but what you get with that is a 68 average. And that's an average that's probably going to go up this year with another season under his belt. He's far and away the best prop in the game. He had the best fantasy season of all time in the history of the game last year, and no one expects that to slow down. You'll be kicking yourself if you don't have Payne Haas in your team. So then right beside him in starting prop, I've got Liam Knight. He's a bit of a cheaper option of 570k, but you're definitely going to see that price go up throughout the season. Last year, he was pretty much only playing off the bench, but this year with the absence of Sam Burgess and a few prop and other forward holes there, he's the man tipped to fill those holes. He'll be playing bigger minutes and therefore bigger points. He already has a really good points per minute, so with more minutes comes more points. Obviously price rises, you can then probably trade him to an even better prop, or maybe he'll be good enough to be a keeper for the whole year. At 570k, that frees up cash to spend elsewhere on some other big boys, and you know that you're getting a quality player at the same time. We've seen Liam Knight play a bunch before, we know how good he is. And then for my first second row spot, we've got another one of the young Broncos boppers, David Fifita. You have to pick him this year. He's tipped to play bigger minutes, he has another season under his belt, he's stronger than ever, and we've seen the massive feats this boy can pull off. He's got an incredible goose step, he can break nearly any tackle, he can pass, he can score tries, and with him playing more minutes this year as well, 680k is the cheapest you're going to see him all year. But then for my other second row spot, I'm taking a bit of a gamble on Jack Williams. With Gow leaving the Sharks, someone has to fill his big minutes in the back row, and Jack Williams is the man tipped to do the job. We've seen him play before, he can bust tackles, he plays really hard. He loves to go out looking for the big hits, which is what you want to see in him. At 472k, he's really cheap because he just wasn't getting the minutes last year. But if he's going to be a starter this year, you're going to see that soar up. You want to jump on him sooner rather than later and get him at a cut price. And then to round out my starting forwards, I've picked Ryan Madison. Madison has already been an established fantasy keeper for about 2 or 3 seasons now, but moving to the Eels this year is a great fantasy move for him because on that right edge, he has Wonga Blake and Blake Ferguson who can finish tries, he's going to get line break assists passing them the ball. They're really going to be feeding off such a big ball playing back rower, meaning Parramatta's going to be using that right edge a hell of a lot more than they did last year. I think Matto's in for a big year, even though he's already expensive at 772k, I think he's worth every penny and will probably make you more. And then into the halves, where I feel like you always need to start with at least one keeper, I've gone with Eels teammate Mitchell Moses. Moses is coming back off the halfback of the year season, and I feel like he's only going to get better this year with coaching from Andrew Johns. He's going to be a hell of a lot more composed, a lot less errors. I feel like the pressure of games aren't going to get to him as much as they did last year, which makes me feel like he's probably in for a more consistent year. Moses already has an average of 54.4 last year, which I feel like he can probably at least equal to this year. Mitchell Moses takes most of the kicking duties off Dylan Brown, meaning that you're going to be getting points for kick meters as well as he does the goal kicking. And with Parramatta being such an attack-focused team now, he's going to be taking a lot of kicks at goal, getting those bonus points. You always want as many goal kickers into your side as you can get, so he should be a great point to start off with. Even though he's expensive at 760k, I feel like he's worth it. And he'll be a great point of difference for all the people going with maybe Nathan Cleary or Daly Cherry Evans, who are more popular halfbacks. And then to partner him, I've got in Jerome Luai. Pretty sure he's the most popular fantasy player this year for very good reason. He's only 249k, and he's going to be playing every minute of every game, taking after James Maloney's position. So in the 6 there, while Nathan Cleary might have the main kicking duties, Luai is going to be making you points just for being on the pitch. So he's a great cash cow option, possibly the best cash cow option of the year. So long as he doesn't get injured and can play consistently. We've seen that he can break the line, he can break tackles, he can put on try assists, he can kick well when he needs to. He can be a match winner and a match contender. I'm tipping Luai for a massive year. He might not be a keeper throughout the entire year for fantasy, but he'll be a great cash cow to start off with and then trade up for one of the bigger halfbacks later on. Now, centre is a position this year that you kind of want to cheap out on to afford the better positions. Centres traditionally are probably your least scoring players in fantasy. And right up until today, I had Bradman Best tipped as my first centre that I put in. But unfortunately this morning, as of recording, he has fractured his foot. He's going to miss out a huge part of the first part of the season. And Tautau Moga should be the next one in line to take that spot. In 2018 at the Broncos, he had a really good season when he was fit, and he was scoring a lot of fantasy points. He was a really good basement price cash cow, and I feel like he can probably do that again so long as the injuries that he's had since don't hinder him too much. And so long as he actually gets put in that centre spot. I think there are a few guys out of the top 30 who could be pushing for it, get a promotion and take that centre spot off Bradman Best. But Moga's already in the top 30. I feel like they'll just slot him straight in. They know he can do a job. And at 285k, that's freeing up a lot of cash to bring in some other boys in other spots. Then in my other centre spot, I've got Zach Lomax. Now last year, me and a whole lot of other fantasy coaches bought him and he burned us. But that was no fault of his own. With the coaching at the Dragons and the season that they had with a lot of injuries and so much of a backline shuffle, he was more used as a utility than anything. He played so many different positions and that just really burned his potential for big games. But this year he's tipped to play fullback all season instead of Matt Duffy, which is arguably his best position. He'll be scoring more points than a lot of people who are actually playing centre probably will. That, and he's also a goal kicker. So should they call in him for kicking duties, he's going to be getting you bonus points there as well. So once again, in 2020, I think a lot of coaches are jumping back on the Lomax train. And this year with wing fullback, I usually go with a keeper here as well for the duration of the season at the beginning, but I've gone with a few players that I might want to trade up. They're all players that I know are going to make me cash, and starting with Ryan Pappenhausen, you can't do any better. At 600k, you know that he's going to make you money. When he was playing like, some of the high-end players like James Tedesco, Tom Trbojevic, the few games that he played, he was setting other sides alight with a lot of line breaks, try assists, and tries for himself. He has an awesome points per minute average, and if he's going to be playing a full season, he'll make you a ton of cash and could potentially even be a keeper to stay in there the whole season. But then one of the biggest gambles for me of the season, for one of my other fullbacks, I've got Jermaine Asako. He's tipped to play number 1 instead of Darius Boyd, and at 471k, he's priced at a winger that was underperforming last year. But fullback is his best position, and he has a hell of a lot higher of potential to score points there than he did on the wing. He's going to be making ball returns, meaning tackle busts and line break potential. It also gives him the opportunity for a bit more ball playing in the attacking line for try assists, line break assists and such. While he definitely won't be a keeper for the whole season, hopefully he'll make a little bit of money to trade up to someone like Charles Nickel-Klokstad, who you know will be good for you in the long run. And then rounding them out, I do have a winger. Usually I go with 3 fullbacks, but this year I've gone with Micah Sevo. I've gone with Sevo this year because their first few fixtures are pretty generous to them. They're against teams that historically don't defend very well, and with the Eels almost always favouring the left-hand side, Sevo's going to be going over for a lot of tries in the first few weeks. I'm not going to be keeping him for the season. I'm using him as a cash cow to trade up to someone hopefully like Tom Trbojevic or James Tedesco, should he come off about 7 or 8 weeks of scoring a lot of tries and going up in price. At least in my head, you always want 3 fullbacks in there, but in this case, I think it's not bad at all to put a winger in there, and you know who'll probably do well early in the season. So going on to the bench now, I always have the philosophy of going with 2 or 3 hookers. Hookers generally score the most points. You want as many of them in there as you can while still having coverage. So Blake Brayley is probably one of the most attractive options. He shouldn't be 400k, he should be cheaper with an 18 average last season. But last season he was only playing about 10 minutes a game. This year he's tipped to play at least 60, but more likely 80. But this year he's going to be making a hell of a lot of tackles, which will make you a ton of cash. And Blake Brayley I can definitely see getting around a 50 average. And I've gone with another cheapie for another bench spot. I've got Sean Keppie. Keppie played really little minutes last year. He didn't have the biggest season ever, but Manly pundits are saying that he's going to be playing huge minutes and have a boom season this year. He does have a fantastic points per minute average. He was just getting very little time on the field last year. He's a big guy who does play really hard. He's not afraid of a hit up. He can punch through the line when he needs to. So at 246k, he will be making you some money if you put him in there. And then to finish off my bench, I've got Mokai Fotuaika. With Ryan James out for the season, Fotuaika is probably the man that's going to be stepping up playing prop. He averaged 40.3 off the bench last year, so with him in a starting spot, those minutes are going to be soaring up along with his average points. And then we all know with your average points going up, so does your cash value. So Fodawaker is going to be a great cash cow to trade up to someone, maybe someone like Mighty Tapau or Alex Twal, who's not too expensive, but you know will do you a job. Or if he's having a big enough season, you can just keep him right in there. Hey guys, just a little heads up. Unfortunately, I had a few audio troubles at this point in the recording, so I've just taken this little snapshot to show you what I've done with my bench. So to finish off the bench, I've put in Tino Fa'asuamaleaui from the Melbourne Storm. He will be playing off the bench this year, but at 300k, he's pretty much a steal. He has a big potential for huge games and huge points, even off the bench, and he also gives you that front row and second row coverage. He's so in demand at the moment that he has signed to go to the Titans next year, and we're definitely going to see that price start to rise from the 300k, where we can eventually start to move out into a bigger prop or back rower to replace him. Then, as you can see there in the emergencies, I kind of cheaped out on a couple of them just because we had no cap space left. Billy Magoulias, though, is probably the key pick in there. He will be getting time. He will be coming off the bench for the Sharks each week. So he's pretty much sitting in there not for the points that he's going to gain you, but for the cash value. Then we've got Billy Walters as well, who is tipped to either come in and play a bit of hooker or a little bit of half. And he had an excellent 9s outing as well, so you can definitely expect him to make a debut sometime this year. Then the final two in there, Toa and Tas, I didn't really pick them for any specific reason at all. I don't know how much NRL they're going to see this year, but the reason I didn't go for more expensive players that I might expect to play is because I still wanted that 32k buffer sitting there that we have. That way if someone gets injured, we're not too pressed for cash. We will have a little bit of a net to replace them with for people who are playing consistent minutes. So that's it guys, that is my fantasy team for this year, at least starting for round 1. Trials and stuff might change it, none of them have been played yet, only the 9s. And obviously, you know, round 1 team list can always change everything too, so this team could get flipped on its head, but this is my line of thinking going in. So I'm hoping that this is probably the best 17 that I could field for round 1. Some punter somewhere is probably going to have a way better team that I come up against in head-to-head that I never would have thought of and blow me out of the park, but you know, that's fantasy. So I'm going to leave a link in the description, guys, for anyone who's playing this year and you want to play against all us at the Rugby League Bunker in Fantasy. It's not going to be a head-to-head league, so we can fit as many people in there as possible. And if you think you have the know-how to get ahead of us in Fantasy, definitely give it a try. We'd love to play against anyone. And don't forget, guys, we do have the Rugby League Bunker podcast back. Lately, we've been talking about our top 8 predictions. We'll be talking about the 9s, analysing the trials. We'll be talking about round 1 and all the fixtures there and previewing all those games. So if you want all that in-depth footy banter with the three of us, with Ben and Kaylin as well, definitely jump on that. Links in the description if you're not listening already. It is the Rugby League Bunker, available on all podcast services. Definitely share it with all of your footy friends. And don't forget to like and share this video as well on whatever platform you're watching it on. It really helps us out. And leave a comment on what you think of my fantasy team and what you're doing with yours. Who you think's gonna hit, who you think's gonna flop. And I'll be back on your screen soon with another video.